welcome to Vanished Voices. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Shannon.
The case I have for you today is about a devoted mother of 5 who vanished without a trace on her way to her new job. This story is filled with baffling clues: an abandoned car in a movie theater parking lot, personal belongings scattered along an interstate, and a severed foot discovered 140 miles away in a northern Indiana pond. Despite extensive searches and an investigation involving local police, state authorities, and even the FBI, no one has been brought to justice. This is the unsolved murder of Najah Ferrell.
I have so many questions right off the bat.
I did too. When I very first saw this case, I was like, how have I not heard this one before?
I mean, we know why.
Yeah, we know why.
Still.
Najah was a 30-year-old mother of 2 boys and a loving foster mom to 3 additional children. Family and friends describe Najah as the cornerstone of her family: compassionate, strong-willed, and endlessly supportive. She was often the life of the party at family gatherings, the one organizing holiday meals and impromptu weekend trips to the park. Her warmth and generosity touched everyone who knew her. She had a special way with children, too. It came as no surprise to her relatives when Najah decided to become a foster parent, in addition to raising her 2 sons. She wanted to give back and provide a loving home to kids who didn't have anyone else. At the time of her disappearance, Najah was engaged to be married to her long-term boyfriend. They had been together for about a decade. No wedding date had been set yet, and as we'll learn later, the engagement had recently been put on hold. Still, Najah was excited about the future. She had spent years as a stay-at-home mom while her boys were young, but by early 2019, she was eager to re-enter the workforce in a way that fit around her kids' schedule. She landed a job at a Panera Bread on the northwest side of Indianapolis, which offered early morning shifts and allowed her to be home when the kids got out of school. It seemed like the perfect opportunity: a little bit of income, personal fulfillment, and she didn't have to sacrifice her time with the children she adored. By all accounts, Najah's life revolved around family. Her mother, Paula, was not just her mom, but also her confidant and best friend. Najah's 2 bio sons were her pride and joy, and she embraced her 3 foster kids with the same love and devotion. She was a giving young lady, Paula would later say, someone who truly lived to care for others. And this caring nature makes what happened next all the more inexplicable. Najah wasn't involved in any high-risk lifestyle. She had no known enemies. She was a responsible mom. She enjoyed her church community and attended regularly. And she was a person with a big heart. I mean, you would have to be.
Yeah,
to be opening.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There was nothing in her background that hinted at the storm that was about to engulf her family's world. Friday, March 15th, 2019, started like any other day for Najah, but it would end in horror and mystery. It was supposed to be her 3rd day of orientation at the new Panera job. She had a 5 a.m. start time. Typically, the drive from her home in Avon, Indiana, to the Panera in northwest Indianapolis would take around 30 minutes. That morning, however, Najah left much earlier than expected. Surveillance footage later confirmed that her black 2018 Nissan Altima pulled out of her apartment complex at 3:15 a.m. And, I could see that if you had to deal with traffic.
Let's see, does Panera even, did they do breakfast? Do they open that early?
I believe so. I know they do breakfast, but I don't know if they opened that early or if she was getting there to start prepping pastries, things like that.
Because I know I had a roommate in college that worked at Einstein's, and she did the morning shift. She would go there at 4 a.m. to start making or overseeing the bagels being made. So that's why I was like, wait, does Panera do that too?
When I was the chef at the rest home and on breakfast, I would have to be there at 4 a.m.
Ooh, that's early.
It's
not a morning person.
Not a morning person. Me either. It was so hard. The 3:15, though, that's nearly 2 hours when she's only having to go about 30 minutes. And if you're worried because it's a brand new job, maybe you would leave some early if you don't know how rush hour is going to be. We have some maps that we'll put up. So she's traveling from Avon up to the star at the top of the Indianapolis map.
Mm-hmm.
That's right next to her work. So, I mean, she's got some major roads to travel to make it to work. But Panera was right by there.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a little bit of a drive.
Yeah. I mean, okay. 30 minutes. To me, 30 minutes is kind of normal.
Yeah.
In Metro Phoenix. So
of
I'm like,
course.
I would think it's semi-normal and maybe Indianapolis as well. Because that is a metro. I think that's the biggest city in Indiana.
Yes. But if you had to be somewhere at, say, 5 a.m. in Phoenix, that's 30 minutes away. Are you leaving an hour and 45 minutes early?
No, I'm not even worried about
getting up.
It's 30 minutes away. And I was used to okay, so maybe if it's an hour before, possibly, just because I don't know the traffic pattern yet, or even even for accidents, you don't necessarily know how long they take to clear.
Mm-hmm.
You're like learning the new path and you don't want to be late because it's a new job.
Yeah. Day 3.
Possibly I would go an hour early just to but usually by day 3, you kind of have an idea. I probably wouldn't still be going that early.
Yeah. Really.
Especially when I'm not a morning person.
Yeah. Same. Why she departed so early remains unexplained. It was dark and quiet in her neighborhood at that pre-dawn hour as her car slipped away into the night. Najah's fiancé was the last person known to have seen or spoken to her at home that morning. According to what he later told Paula, Najah woke him up around 3 a.m. to say that she was headed to work, and she asked him to get the kids up and ready for school in her absence. He did not actually watch her walk out the door, which I can understand.
Yeah, I would stay in bed too.
Yeah, you're like, all right, good luck today. Have a good day. Paula doesn't believe that he saw Najah leave at all. But the assumption was that Najah was on her way to Panera somewhere between Avon and Indianapolis. Something happened to Najah. She never showed up at Panera for her 5 a.m. orientation. Her new coworkers waited, perhaps initially thinking she was running late, but Najah never arrived at all. This is completely out of character for a woman described as punctual and reliable. Plus, we know she left the house that morning to make it there. Still, in those early morning hours, no one in her family knew anything was wrong. Najah's fiancé likely assumed she made it to work, and the Panera staff who barely knew her might not have had immediate contacts for her family.
Well, and that soon, they would just assume she probably was quitting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know
I wouldn't food industry.
Yeah, like I wouldn't think anything. Third day of training, somebody's already figured they don't like this, so they pieced out.
Yep, they couldn't do the mornings, whatever it was. It wasn't until later that day, the afternoon of March 15th, that red flags started to go up. Najah failed to pick up her children from school that Friday, which set off alarm bells among her relatives. Normally, Najah would have been there waiting when classes let out. Instead, school staff contacted her family to report that the kids had not been picked up. Can only imagine the shock and concern that Paula felt upon getting that call. She said she knew instantly something was very wrong. She knew that's not Najah. Her dependable daughter would never leave her children stranded or fail to check in with family and have them do the pickup or somehow coordinate pickup for these children. Panicked, Paula and other family members tried calling Najah's cell phone repeatedly. Every call went unanswered. By the time evening arrived with still no word from Najah, her family's concern had escalated to dread. They began reaching out to authorities. And I guess they had that conversation among themselves that was, well, do we have to wait 48 hours? That type of thing. And luckily, someone in their immediate circle was like, no, when she doesn't pick up her kids, we know something's wrong. We're not going to wait.
Right.
Thank goodness. So they reached out to authorities. Initially, the confusion of where Najah might be led to a jurisdiction hiccup. The family wasn't sure if something could have happened to her at work in Indianapolis. So they reported her missing to the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Those officers took the report and started some preliminary checks. When it was confirmed that Najah never even made it to Panera Bread that morning, attention shifted back to her hometown of Avon. After all, that's where she was last physically seen by her fiancé in the early hours at home.
So I know, like, here in Metro Phoenix, you can literally have a different jurisdiction every few miles. So is it kind of the same in Metro Indianapolis that there's going to be potentially between her home and this Panera, there's multiple jurisdictions between the freeway area?
Yeah, it seems like it. Speedway and some of those other cities, like they all seem to have their own police department. When they figured that out, which was late Friday, they transferred the case to the Avon Police Department, which had jurisdiction where her home was. Unfortunately, by that time, it was the end of the work week, and Avon is a much smaller department than Indianapolis. No detective was immediately assigned to Najah's case. In fact, the formal investigative team wouldn't mobilize until Monday. Those first 48 to 72 hours, we know, in a disappearance are critical, and frustratingly, Najah's case lost that window to this weekend lag, which is such a bummer.
Yeah, that seems... Don't they have, like, someone on call?
That's what I was wondering, but I guess not. Her family spent the entire weekend frantically searching and praying on their own, waiting for this police department to jump in. They were desperate for any sign of her. They plastered social media with pleas for help, and they alerted local news outlets that Najah was missing. From the very start, those who knew Najah insisted that foul play had to be involved. This was a young woman who had no history of disappearing or irresponsible behavior. Detective Brian Nugent of the Avon Police publicly acknowledged early on that, quote, in the absence of any information to suggest where she's at, foul play is at the forefront of our theories. Which, at least when they did jump on, they jumped on without the normal.
Right.
Did she just decide to take a...
I mean, considering she'd been a stay-at-home mom for years prior, and this was her first job outside of that, you don't just walk away at that moment.
No. Investigators had very little to go on that first week. Najah had essentially vanished without a trace, but they didn't consider for a moment that she had voluntarily been hiding out somewhere. It was clear something bad had happened. Najah's aunt Rondell said, quote, we're using the phrase, it's like she vanished into thin air, but I want to say right here and now, there's no such thing. Somebody knows something. In other words, people don't just evaporate. There had to be an individual behind this, and that person was keeping a terrible secret. By Monday, March 18th, the Avon Police Department had a detective assigned and a full missing person investigation underway. Despite the first weekend delay, authorities did act with urgency once they were on the case. Officers canvassed Najah's neighborhood in Avon, knocking on doors to see if anyone had noticed anything unusual in the early hours of March 15th. They spoke to Najah's fiancé, family members, friends, neighbors, anyone who might provide leads. Police also reached out to Panera Bread and even Najah's new coworkers to confirm that she had never arrived and to gather information about her state of mind in the days leading up to her disappearance. And all reports indicated that Najah was happy about starting work and had no personal problems that would cause her to leave on her own. The investigation quickly expanded. Indiana State Police and eventually the FBI were brought in to assist due to the troubling circumstances and potential that Najah had been abducted. Search parties were organized to comb through the routes that Najah might have driven that morning. Over the first several days, police and volunteers conducted extensive ground and aerial searches across the area. They searched along roadsides, empty fields, wooded patches, anything between Avon and the Panera location in northwest Indianapolis. K-9 units sniffed for any trace of Najah or her belongings, and helicopters scanned from above. But these efforts turned up no sign of Najah. With no early breakthroughs on the ground, investigators also tried to track Najah's digital footprint. They contacted her cell phone provider to see if they could get a location ping from her phone. Frustratingly, this process did not yield quick results. Detective Nugent noted that they ran into a, quote, slow response from the phone company when trying to obtain data from Najah's device.
And they haven't found her car at this point. Okay.
No. By the time any phone info came in, it was too late. Najah's phone had either died or been powered off, as it was no longer transmitting a signal. The last known phone ping suggested the phone had traveled only a short distance that morning, possibly along the highway on Indy's northwest side, but then all signals ceased abruptly.
Does that mean like the phone got destroyed?
Either destroyed or turned off. I'm not sure if it would still ping if it was completely powered off.
I don't think it will.
Mm-mm.
I guess, yeah, you could say, is it going to straight to voicemail and then you know it's turned off?
Because it almost...
Or dead.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't think she'd start off the day with a dead phone. I mean, it happens, but...
Right. It almost sounded, though, like when her family was trying to call, like I couldn't narrow it down exactly, but it kind of sounded like it was ringing. But like then it would have to and be
then
on.
Yeah, then it would be on and working.
But they're saying that's when all signals stopped. So maybe it was going straight to voicemail and they just didn't clarify that.
Yeah.
That would be really alarming to me if it was going straight to voicemail. So
I'm like, okay, so she's in a vehicle traveling. I wonder if she's the type to pull over for somebody in distress.
Maybe.
But at the same time, I'm assuming she's on freeways, and even then you're trying to not, of course, again, she left early.
Yeah.
So was she supposed to pick somebody up?
Oh.
Also going to
That would explain the 3:15.
Right. Is somebody else also working there that needed a ride, or another person? I would think her fiance would have known about that. Like, hey, I got to give so-and-so a ride.
Yeah.
Did he think it was odd she was going in early on day 3? Was there any info on that?
It seems like he said he thought she was leaving a lot earlier than she needed to, but he didn't say that for a specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't sound like any of the coworkers had really anything helpful to offer either. Yeah. None of them were like, oh, she was supposed to pick me up and she didn't, or anything like that. While detectives worked, Najah's family was doing everything in their power to keep the spotlight on the case. They spoke to local media. They worked on getting Najah's photo and story in the news. A prayer vigil was organized that first Sunday after she vanished. They had friends, neighbors, and even strangers came together to pray for Najah's safe return. The community rallied, distributing missing person flyers and flooding social media with posts about Najah. Hala, though terrified, stood in front of TV cameras and pleaded for help locating her daughter. With tears in her eyes, she urged anyone who might know something to come forward, emphasizing how out of character this was for Najah. And Najah's younger sister said how badly she just wanted her sister to come back home. She said, quote, I don't want to open my eyes anymore unless she's here. The family's fear and anguish was palpable, and the entire Indianapolis area began to share in the alarm over the young mother's disappearance. Despite exhaustive efforts, the week after Najah went missing turned up no major clues, until investigators caught a much-needed break about 11 days into the case. In the early hours of Tuesday, March 26, 2019, an Indianapolis Metro police officer on routine patrol made a discovery. Around 1:30 a.m., the officer spotted a black Nissan Altima sitting seemingly abandoned in the parking lot of the Studio Movie Grill on Indy's northwest side.
Which is over by the Panera, right?
Exactly. Studio Movie Grill is a large theater complex, and it's near West 86th Street and intersection 465. It's just a couple miles from the Panera Bread where Najah was headed. Running the plates, the officer realized that this was Najah Ferrell's car. The vehicle appeared to have been left there unattended. It was locked and no one around at that hour. Investigators went to the scene and Najah's family was notified of the find. Paula raced to the parking lot hoping for answers, but ended up being met with more unsettling questions.
I wonder why the officer thought a car sitting in a movie theater lot was abandoned.
I'm guessing.
Or was there an APB out on her vehicle and that's what he may have recognized?
There was.
Okay.
I can only assume because it was 1:30 on a Tuesday and maybe their latest showing had been 10 or 10:30. The Studio Movie Grill itself now is permanently closed.
Yeah.
So I couldn't see what kind of schedule they have, like on a Monday night leading into a Tuesday. Maybe all the cars were gone by 1 a.m., whoever was working and everything. But from all the pictures, I mean, it's the only car in the parking lot.
Yeah, I just like people leave their cars. That's one that sells liquor. So maybe they got a different ride home. I just think that's weird. I would think it's more from the fact that they were looking for a black Altima and then maybe he looked at his flyer and they read the plates.
Well, you're going to think it's more weird in a second.
Oh, okay.
So first, inside Najah's Altima, police found personal items. They found her work ID badge and some other belongings reportedly in the car, though notably Najah's phone and purse were missing. The car showed no obvious signs of a struggle, no blood, no broken glass. It really looked as if someone had parked it neatly and walked away. If Najah had driven herself to the spot, where did she go? And if someone else had left the car, how did they leave? Detectives began canvassing the area around the Studio Movie Grill for surveillance footage. Given that the car turned up in a commercial area, they obviously hoped that cameras maybe had caught something useful. Their efforts paid off. Surveillance video from the parking lot revealed that on March 15th, the very morning that Najah disappeared, her Altima was seen pulling into that lot around 5:05 a.m., and an unidentified adult male was driving. The grainy footage showed this man park Najah's car and then quickly hop into another vehicle that had followed behind him into the lot. In the pre-dawn darkness of the video, details like the man's face and the second vehicle's license plate weren't clear. But this development confirmed two things. Najah's car had been deliberately dumped near her workplace, and at least one other person, and an accomplice, was involved in her disappearance. So that's why I said it's more weird when you mentioned him just noticing the car sitting there, because it's been there for 11 days. And it's right by her work. How did we miss it for 11 days?
A Nissan Altima?
Yeah.
Black?
Yeah.
There's thousands.
True.
So that's
but every night it's sitting there alone, right?
I'm going to assume the movie theater was still open at that time. Now, if it wasn't, that's different. But if the parking lot's filling up, essentially hiding it, now I'm surprised. Normally, if something sits there overnight or for a couple of days, they're going to call and say, hey, there's an abandoned car here. So maybe the movie theater was no longer open and that's a different story. And yes, why didn't somebody notice it sooner? So it's going to really depend on that.
Wasn't ours still open in 2019?
I feel like it was.
I think it was.
Yeah. Well,
I don't remember.
No. Yes.
Because a new one came in its place. So I was trying to remember.
That's the one that was
the north.
Sort of. Yeah. But
yeah.
No, I don't know. I never went, so I don't know. But 2019, that could have been right, because I'm sure COVID took them out.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if they had already started. Maybe it wasn't open. Because then,
maybe.
Yeah, if it wasn't filling up every night, then that is a little bit more odd.
Right.
But it's also odd that her stuff is in there except for her purse and phone.
Mm-hmm. Her work ID badge.
Mm-hmm. Because again, why did she stop there? Or did she?
Right. And the timeline's a little weird. Najah's car is seen leaving her apartment at 3:15 a.m. And by 5:05 a.m., so almost 2 hours later, It's being abandoned in that parking lot by a stranger who had arrived with a getaway driver.
Oh.
That same.
So wait, that morning,
March 15th.
It was literally abandoned 10 minutes before she's supposed to arrive to work? Or what time did her shift start? 5?
5. So 5 minutes after.
No, that's, and then.
But it's only an hour and 50 minutes.
And then what did the guy do that dropped her car off there?
Another car followed him in the parking lot, and he got in that car and they drove away.
Okay, so that's interesting.
I don't like it.
No, that's...
Yeah.
But that's a very tight time frame.
Exactly. And it's a 30-minute drive from where she lived.
And yeah, that's weird. I have, again...
So many
I mean,
questions.
I have, because, okay, so is she in that other car in the trunk? Is she already deceased? Is she, I mean, yeah, who are these people?
Right. How did they...
I mean, that's such a tight timeline.
Driving her car?
That makes me think if she left early, she was planning to meet somebody, but why? And which could be for any number of innocent, hey, I sold something on Facebook Marketplace and now I'm going to go meet the person to do the transaction.
Yeah, it turns out they work nights.
Right.
And
and turns out they were criminal. It's, you have so many very not bad reasons to.
Right. And that's why I wonder, we don't know about her phone logs, but I would love to know if there was any number she was calling or texting, because if she is planning to meet up with someone and you're leaving an hour and 45 minutes before you have to be to work, you would think you would be like, hey, are we still on for me driving you to work or me meeting you to sell this thing or whatever the case might be. When the surveillance information came to light, it sent chills through Najah's family and the community. It meant that Najah likely never drove herself toward work at all. After all, someone else is behind the wheel. And where was Najah during that time? And who were these people with her car? Those questions only intensified the urgency of the investigation. After recovering the Altima, police thoroughly processed it for evidence. They dusted for fingerprints, looked for DNA, and examined every inch of this car. And strangely, no definitive forensic evidence was found in Najah's car. It was clean, perhaps wiped down by whoever was driving it, or maybe yielding nothing like useful identifiable prints. The investigators also scoured the route between Avon and the parking lot. Not long after the car was found, construction workers discovered some of Najah's personal belongings discarded on the side of Interstate 465 near the Lafayette Road exit.
Which, again, okay, now robbery. And yeah.
These items turned out to be papers and cards, specifically Najah's ID and bank cards. And this is according to her sister, Jaleesa. I'm not sure if it's ever been said by police. I'm not sure. Her items were just lying along the shoulder of the highway. This suggested that the person who took Najah, or at least took her car, might have tossed out anything with her name on it while driving away, maybe in an attempt to destroy evidence or delay identification.
Well, and the car being wiped down is, I mean, that shows, I won't go so far as say professionalism, but somebody who knows what they're doing.
If you're not even leaving a hair fiber, nothing.
And yet you are in the car driving it.
And my guess...
And usually there would be like fingerprints on the steering wheel and on the back of it, or on the door handle, on the inside, because you have to open it. Maybe even on the outside door handle.
To get it.
A gear shift. Like,
even just to put it in
that's
drive.
A lot, and even move the car seat, because I'm going to assume if it's a male, he's going to be taller than her.
Right.
And so he's going to have to move the seat back. And, did he touch the seat belt? So that's crazy.
Unless he was wearing gloves. I'm guessing, I know Indianapolis is pretty dang cold.
Yeah, March.
It is mid-March.
Yeah, that could probably go
the middle
either
of
way.
the night or 5 a.m.
Early morning.
I mean, you could be wearing gloves to...
I should ask my cousin.
Yeah.
She would know.
Ask her how cold it is in March. But whether he was wearing gloves because it was cold or not, I don't think you could make it out on the surveillance footage they had. It's just too dark and too poor quality. Finding Najah's car and now her scattered belongings was critical development, but it also deepened the mystery. There was still no sign of Najah herself. Detectives expanded their search around the parking lot and beyond. They obtained additional surveillance footage from nearby businesses and traffic cameras, hoping to trace the second vehicle that picked up the unknown man. They also looked at phone records to see if Najah's phone or any other phones pinged near the movie theater lot around 5 a.m. They were working on developing leads, but the case was far from solved. On March 28, 2019, about 2 weeks after Najah went missing, the Avon Police Department held a press conference to update the public. By this point, Najah's disappearance was front page news in Indiana, and especially the area like Avon and Indianapolis. Her family stood alongside police, desperate for any shred of information. At that press conference, Paula made a tearful plea directly to whoever might be responsible or whoever knew something. My daughter should be here with her boys, she said, referring to Najah's 5 children.
Right. Really, I mean, yeah, she has 2 biologicals, but really she's got 3 others.
Yep.
Who, yeah, they probably go right back into the system.
Like that's did. Isn't that heartbreaking?
Yes.
Paula said that for Najah's 2 bio sons, they've never been without their mother. It's heartbreaking. Detective Nugent also spoke at the March 28th briefing, underscoring how deeply troubling Najah's disappearance was. He told reporters, quote, "For a mother to not know where her children are at and for her children to not know where their mother is at, it's not only heartbreaking, but it's certainly suspicious." A case of a responsible mom vanishing into thin air simply did not make sense. By now, investigators were openly calling Najah's case a likely abduction and fearing the worst. They still held onto hope of finding her alive, and they urged the public to keep phoning in tips. They were getting tips. They got hundreds of them, but none that cracked the case. On April 7th, 2019, a little over 3 weeks after Najah was last seen, 2 fishermen were casting lines into a small retention pond in Crown Point, Indiana. This is roughly 140 miles north of Avon. The pond sits near an exit off of Interstate 65, which is a major highway that connects the Indianapolis area up to northwest Indiana and then on to Chicago. As the 2 men fished on that quiet Sunday, they noticed something unusual near the water's edge. Upon getting a closer look, they realized with horror it was a human foot. They immediately called local authorities. By the next day, April 8th, investigators in Crown Point had recovered the severed left foot from the pond. The foot had a distinctive tattoo on it, a tattoo that spelled the name Najah. And Najah's sister joked that when Najah was considering getting this tattoo, she kind of made fun of her, like, who puts their own name on their foot, right?
Yeah.
And then that becomes such a strong piece of this.
Yeah.
The detail of the tattoo alone strongly suggested what everyone feared. This was the remains of Najah. The foot was taken to the Lake County coroner and then to the Indiana State Police Laboratory for forensic testing. Within days, DNA analysis confirmed that the foot did indeed belong to Najah. The news was devastating. After weeks of searching and hoping, Najah's family got the answer they dreaded, that Najah was no longer alive. The manner of discovery made it even more horrifying. Somewhere, something terrible had happened to Najah, and
they just went straight to homicide and not just, okay, we cut off someone's foot. I mean, that's a little bit morbid to say, but
yeah, it seems like it.
Okay.
I know.
I mean, I would go that route too, but just wondered.
It's always possible, right?
Especially when that was like the only part of her found. it's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
There's still although then again, can you live with a severed foot and not without hospital intervention? Probably not.
Probably not. Not without that
Yeah.
being done.
Yeah, not without medical intervention.
Yeah. Paula later recounted the unthinkable moment that police showed her a photograph for identification, which would be just awful.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
They presented her with an image of the tattoo on the severed foot to confirm that it was her daughter's name. Having to identify your child by such a graphic, heartbreaking note. Paula said, "My heart, I can't even tell you. I wouldn't want any other mother to ever, ever have to deal with anything like this. And then because I miss her." With the discovery of Najah's foot, the case shifted in detectives' minds from a missing person search to a death investigation. Avon Police Deputy Chief Brian Nugent grimly announced that evidence pointed towards Najah being the victim of a homicide.
Had they released any images from the surveillance video of the man that was seen, or even the car that he got into to drive away?
They did release the car,
but not the grainy images.
I remember. I feel like they did at some point, but not early on. Like when they
and the fiance had no idea who they could have been.
Not that I found in reporting.
Okay.
So whether he had an idea and they checked it out, or he had no idea.
Did they tell the make and model of the car that the guy got? Okay.
Doesn't seem like it. And they specifically said they couldn't make out the license plate, but...
Which that I would get, but I'm wondering if they can still figure out what kind of car it was.
My guess is if they could, it was probably something as generic
as her Nissan Altima. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to guess that when you're doing that, you're on some surveillance, right?
Yeah.
It seems really brazen to just...
In this day and age, there's cameras.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if they had their license plate covered with something or, had made the car less discernible.
Well, of course, if you're driving away and you don't know what car it is, you could still start looking for cars with that color or similar in the area at that time. But maybe there is no cameras over there. I know they're on major city streets, but is that considered a major city street? Like, who knows? And if there's if it's residential in the area, it's easy to get lost in some neighborhoods for a while before you come back out to a larger street.
Yeah, that's possible too. Because they were looking at traffic cams at the same time, and they weren't ever able to really hone in on a car in the area at the same time. Investigators descended on the Crown Point Pond where the foot was found. This location is about a 2-hour drive from Avon. Search teams combed the pond and the surrounding area extensively in hopes of finding either additional remains or any evidence, clothing, jewelry, a weapon. They even drained portions of the pond to look in the muck below it, but no other trace of Najah was found there. It was almost as if whoever disposed of her body had intentionally scattered it far from the original crime scene, either to make it harder to find her or in an attempt to destroy evidence. The discovery raised many questions. Why Crown Point? This is a city in northwestern Indiana, not far from the Illinois border. Essentially, it's on the way to Chicago. Now, one thing I did find interesting about this area is before moving to Avon, and I'm not exactly sure how long, whether it was where she grew up when she was young or if it was in the last few years, Najah did live in Gary, Indiana, which you can see just north of the pond.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like investigators found any connection between the two, but that was interesting. Detectives wondered if Najah's killer was driving north on I-65, left her remains in that pond, either to mislead investigators or distance themselves from the crime. The fact that her foot turned up near a highway suggested that whoever did this might have been in transit. They wondered if it was a truck driver or someone who regularly traveled that route. They wondered if the killer had ties to that area or was headed to Chicago. All possibilities were on the table. One immediate task for law enforcement was to determine cause and manner of death, but unfortunately, since they had only recovered the foot, they weren't able to. As of that time, investigators had not determined her exact cause of death or even how her foot had been severed. They didn't find any obvious trauma on the foot that could tell the story.
I mean, I think they can tell the difference between like somebody sawing it off versus,
you would think
fish well, of course, if it's submerged in the water, we know that the parts start to fall off too, but it didn't.
Right.
But I also feel like it shows like skin where that's an obvious, okay, this is just, decomposition. Interesting.
It seems...
I almost think that they're maybe just not disclosing that because it's not a detail that we really need to know.
Totally. It does seem like they were pretty sure that her foot had been dismembered from her body.
Mm-hmm.
The worst part is that they said they couldn't tell if it occurred before death or as an attempt to dispose of her body afterward.
Interesting, because I feel like they can usually tell that also.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was because it was in the pond.
Maybe. Yeah, it may have washed away that evidence of... Because I think that has to do with how the blood leaves the body. If it's dismembered, it's different than pre-mortem because it's the heart is still pumping versus post.
Right. And maybe if they had been able to find more, they would have had a better idea.
Yeah, I don't know if you can tell cause of death from a body part.
It doesn't seem like it.
I'm thinking of Robert Durst, and I don't believe they were able to do that.
Right, because they didn't find the skull.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't tell if he'd actually been shot, like Robert said.
Right.
Or, I also listened to one just yesterday where they found only the skull and they couldn't tell cause of death.
Because there was no injury to the skull,
Yep. The other details that they might have got from this has been held closely by investigators, but it's been reported that forensic examiners could not find any definitive answers with the limited evidence available. For Najah's family, the confirmation of her death was shattering. The hope that they had clung to, the hope of finding her alive, was gone. Paula and other relatives organized a candlelight vigil in Avon in Najah's memory, and they did travel up to Crown Point to see the area where Najah's foot was found. The community mourned with them. Najah's case had captured so many hearts. She wasn't just a name in the news, but a beloved mother and friend. Her story was featured on local and even some national news, and pictures of her smiling face, this beautiful young woman with dark hair and bright eyes, ran alongside headlines about the missing Avon mom. Now, those headlines would refer to her as a victim of a presumed murder. Paula struggled to understand the senselessness of it all. Her daughter had lived a decent, caring life and hurt no one. In Paula's eyes, Najah did everything right. She wasn't mixed up in crime or risky behavior. So how could this happen? And it's a question that haunts the family to this day. With Najah's death confirmed, investigators doubled down on efforts to find the person or persons responsible. The case was now officially a homicide investigation. Who killed Najah and why? This is the central question that has tormented detectives and Najah's loved ones for the past almost 7 years. Unfortunately, despite some clues, no arrests have been made and no suspect has been publicly named. The investigation has explored multiple avenues, but each seems to lead to more questions. Early on, police naturally scrutinized those close to Najah. This included her fiancé, the last person to see her alive. In the course of the investigation, it came to light that Najah's engagement had been canceled in late 2018. So
they were still living together?
Yeah. And
Did her family know that?
They did.
Okay.
It kind of feels like, the two had been together for over 10 years.
Mhm.
And even though they had called off the wedding, like it was taking some time to find separate places and figure out finances and kind of everything that comes with separating when you've been living together for that long.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard to separate.
Absolutely. By all accounts, the situation was civil. They were co-parenting Najah's two boys and managing.
Was he their father?
I believe so.
So had she started dating anyone else?
Not that I've seen reported anywhere.
Okay.
And I don't know if he has started dating anyone himself. There were no known reports of domestic violence or any major conflict. Still, in cases like this, statistics show that you have to consider the possibility of an intimate partner's involvement. Najah's fiance has maintained his innocence, and as far as police have said, he's cooperated with them. Detective Nugent stated that all parties interviewed, including Najah's fiance, family members, and neighbors, were cooperative and none were named as suspects. In the immediate aftermath, the fiance's account of that morning was that Najah left for work around 3 a.m. and even texted him shortly after she left to presumably check in. However, Najah's mother harbors doubts about that version of events. Hala has openly questioned whether her daughter ever truly left the house on her own accord that morning. She points to a couple small details. Najah's work shoes and coat were found at the house.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So her work ID badge in the car, that seems like an obvious one to grab if you're staging something, but forgot the shoes and the coat.
Yeah.
If Najah really left for her job, why would she leave her coat on an early March morning and not wear the shoes that she'd normally use for her shift? The inconsistencies trouble Hala deeply. It's worth noting that if Najah was attacked at home, which is what Hala fears, the perpetrator still had to get her car out of the complex by 3:15 a.m., which aligns with the surveillance timestamp. It's possible that Najah was already incapacitated or worse by then, and the individual was moving quickly to dispose of evidence, hence the car being dropped off by 5:05 a.m. But what did you do in the meantime?
Well, and now I'm back to the fiance.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, why did she leave? I could see leaving maybe wearing a different jacket.
Yeah.
But if you have to wear specific restaurant shoes, like the no slip,
right,
you're not going to show up on day 3
in the wrong
shoes.
Yep.
And just the fact that, her texting him shortly after, if she just woke you up,
she's not expecting you to be awake.
Why would she text you?
Right.
Again, to re-wake you up, knowing you now have to get up to take kids to school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now, can they prove that text came through? I guess we don't know that information.
I would like to.
But that's something that they can verify.
But he could have sent it to himself if he is actually
that's
responsible.
Right, because her phone has never been found.
Right.
Interesting. Wow, I was really not thinking it was the fiance till just now.
Yeah.
Now I'm like,
I liked watching you.
High on my radar.
Yeah. I mean, he's there. No one knows for sure that she was the one driving.
Did they interview the boys, or were they just fast asleep and had no information?
Fast asleep and pretty young.
And they didn't hear anything loud or?
Not that's been reported.
Okay.
But that is a good question because we heard that in our case on Cecilia.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the presence of an accomplice. We have a second vehicle on camera. We have 2 drivers. That further complicates things.
Did the one they got on camera, did he resemble the fiance?
I don't know.
Okay.
I would love to know.
Because I'm like, that's where, can't they
That's why when you asked
look
if
at the
he
person,
recognized him.
Yeah, look at the person and go, okay, this is their height based on these building heights and blah. They know they do all that scientific stuff.
Right.
Did we do that?
Have
we done that? We're just not telling us?
Right. That too. Are we trying to put together a really ironclad case first? Maybe. But like if it was him, then you would assume whoever he enlisted to help would at least.
Although, wait, wasn't she seen on her surveillance cameras in her apartment complex?
It says her car was seen leaving at 3:15.
So they can't show or prove who was actually driving it.
It doesn't seem like it. And
so that's interesting.
Right? Maybe she never left.
So maybe cameras up by the front, like where maybe it's like a gated apartment and you have, so you can see who's entering and who's leaving.
Driver, like the license plate.
Right, but not where you can tell who's the driver.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe she was already in her car.
Right.
Did they ever search her apartment?
They did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it shockingly clean as well?
It was shockingly clean. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The plot thickens.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good, all of it. The other scenario, we'll come back and forth between them.
Okay.
That investigators weighed is that Najah was abducted by someone she encountered outside of the home. So similar to what you mentioned, something during her commute in those early hours. So did she stop for gas or coffee on the way and run into a predator? Could someone have followed her from her apartment complex?
Was she a known coffee drinker?
I'm not sure, but maybe you're willing to start if you're having to start work.
I dislike coffee immensely. Like, I wish I liked it, but the taste is gross to me. So I could never just start it.
I mean, I guess she could have been stopping for like an energy drink or a diet Coke.
But I'm also even leaving early, I found that you can never guess how fast your, Starbucks is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to allot time. So it's almost just easier not to stop.
Right.
I mean, unless you're doing the whole mobile order ahead and you just run in and pick it up, but still, that seems like a lot of extra. Again, when you're going to your job for the third day.
Right. And, so maybe that's why she left at 3:15. She knows she needed gas. Maybe, when we lived in New Jersey.
Which a gas station would have cameras.
Right. And I'm not sure that they found it, but also if they weren't looking within the first 7 days,
it's probably gone.
It might have been rewritten. But when we lived in New Jersey, you had to have somebody else pump your gas. And there were a lot of gas stations that would close even like at 7 p.m.
Oh.
Yeah. And you couldn't stop. So you would almost have to go quite a ways out of your way to find one that was open if it was 10 p.m., which would be especially true at 3 a.m. And I'm not saying that they can't pump their own gas in Indiana. I'm pretty sure they
can.
But if
I only know about Oregon. You can't pump your own gas.
And New Jersey.
Okay.
And we had some people pump it for us in parts of New York, but.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it could be that the gas stations close to her work weren't open 24/7.
Yeah.
Maybe she wanted to stop at a specific one.
Well, and probably one she knows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't go to the one closer to the work. I'd go to the one I know.
Right.
Like, I'm comfortable at.
As long as it's open in the middle of the night.
Right. I guess, if you're running out of gas, sometimes you can't be choosy. You just got to get gas.
Yeah. Yep. And maybe.
But a coffee.
Yeah.
Or a donut, you're going to go to the one you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
The one that's clean. The one that has good pastries,
Exactly. Fresh at 3 a.m. and not from the day before.
Super fresh.
Although she is going to Panera's, so.
Yeah, if they have breakfast, you're just going to eat there.
Yeah, pastries, whatever.
I'm just making sure it's acceptable for the public.
Yeah. The fact that her car was abandoned near her workplace is very possibly a red herring.
Yeah. Yeah.
The culprit could have left it there to make it look like she was taken en route. There were reports that Najah's car might have been seen briefly on I-465 that morning, consistent with where her belongings were found.
Unless it was on camera with it's a black Altima.
I know.
They're all over.
Yep. When we've driven in the middle of the night, you're never alone.
No.
There's always people coming and going.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, it's way too early. Why are there so many cars on the road?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they're going to a sporting event like I am.
Exactly. After that maybe sighting on I-465, it seems that her car went straight to the movie theater parking lot. So a fairly direct route. Detectives examined traffic camera footage on the interstates and major roads between Avon and Crown Point, trying to spot Najah's car or the follow-up vehicle sometime after 5:05 a.m., but they found no clear leads. The FBI assisted by developing profiles of potential suspects. They looked at anyone with a history of violence in Hendricks County, which is where Avon is, and in the Crown Point area, which is Lake County. These efforts didn't give them any obvious suspect. Forensic analysis of the recovered foot was also conducted to see if they could find any clues. The FBI's forensic experts examined it for any trace evidence, such as bits of clothing, fiber, paint, soil, tool marks that might hint at where or how it was separated. If any clues were found, they haven't been shared publicly. And, like in every case, investigators have kept some details confidential to vet future suspects against insider knowledge. Years have now passed, and many lingering questions haunt Najah's case. Investigators and Najah's family continually mull over these puzzles. Why was Najah's car left in that particular parking lot? It was found only about 2 miles from her workplace, almost as if whoever did it wanted it discovered relatively close to where she should have been. Now, was this to mislead the investigation about where the crime occurred, or simply a convenient place to ditch the car off the interstate? To me, it seems like they wanted it discovered near her work.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like it's right. Like if they wanted to just leave it, they could have left it like at the 805 or 865 and 465. That junction seems closer.
I mean, it just seems like, yes, they were trying to make it appear she left the house and got as close as possible to her job.
Yes. They wonder if Najah was actually abducted during her short drive to work or if she had willingly met someone.
That just made me think, because I wonder if she's the one that broke off the engagement, because she'd been a stay-at-home mom. If you're no longer being supported, or if you're going to need to move on from the person who's supporting you, you have to go get a job. And then I wonder if this was yet another chip in the, like, okay, we really are going to break up.
Right. Like if he thought they were getting back together.
Yeah, because if she doesn't have financial income, there's still a chance. But no, because it is weird 3 days in. And so that just clicked.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They didn't find any evidence of a struggle at her home. And they're also looking at how early she was leaving, which is what we talked about. There's the possibility that someone lured her or tried to set up a meeting, something like that. Someone maybe called.
Now the whole leaving earlier than she needed to, that wasn't really, now it's more like, that's the time I needed to say, because I knew that there would be a timestamp of this car on the camera.
Exactly.
And so I'll get that part. I mean, I will say the person is not dumb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That actually makes a lot of sense, because it doesn't make sense that she was leaving that early.
Mm-hmm. On day 3.
Yeah. But if he, like you said,
I mean, I can justify it, but it just seems odd. Because even by the 3rd day, you kind of, okay, I know the traffic pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't need to really allow for, like, even if there's an accident, we get through them pretty quickly. Everybody pulls over to the side and the traffic continues flowing.
Right.
I mean, that's really early even for a rush hour. So,
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Even leaving at 4:15
is still early.
Early.
I would say you're getting ahead of rush hour.
Exactly.
And that's in the Metro Phoenix area, which is larger than Indianapolis.
Yeah, Phoenix isn't bad before.
No, it's like
6:30.
Like that's when you
really
know.
Starting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Detectives wondered why Najah's remains were disposed along major highway routes so far from her home. I mean, 140 miles away is baffling. It suggests that either the killer was comfortable traveling long distances, and that's where you come back to if they really did leave it there that same morning, that's not enough time to drive 2 hours after, say, that 5 a.m. leaving the car and get back home to get the kids up and out the door for school. So it either, if it,
Or
it
he
had
was
to be a
still in the
different
car,
day.
took him to school, but he would have a different vehicle, right? Oh no, so yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, at this point, I'm thinking she's probably in the other car.
possibly. So then whoever's the accomplice,
Then
maybe
he
did
deals
it.
with the kids getting off to school.
Right.
Then
He needs a ride home first.
reconnects with the accomplice. Or heck, maybe even borrow. I mean, I think if he'd borrowed their car, that would have come out.
Mm.
But then, because he has until school's getting let out,
Yeah.
unless he had to work
Unless
that
he
day
worked.
too. But
Right.
I'm going to guess he either didn't go or I don't know. That's
I
questions.
mean, he would have to go, or that would be totally
that would be obvious.
suspicious.
But
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. But maybe maybe it was his day off and that day was picked on purpose.
Yeah, that's true too.
But those are things that clearly we would not know.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of guessing.
It is a lot of guessing. It's trying to fill in.
I'm trying to put
like 500 of the 1,000 pieces.
Squares into circles right now.
Yeah, exactly. Detectives also wondered if whoever did this had connections to both the Avon area and then also, 140 miles away in Northwest Indiana. Someone who knew the Crown Point area could have chosen that pond intentionally. Alternatively, it could have been random, just a convenient pit stop off of I-65. And then they really wondered if Najah knew her assailant. And this remains one of the toughest questions because sometimes cases like this involve an acquaintance or someone maybe who developed an unhealthy obsession. I mean, they could have been following her and known her routes. Other times,
I mean, 3 days in seems kind of.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, that's.
You'd have to really be in the know.
And really, I mean, maybe you know her. Well, I don't know. That's 3 days in of a new schedule altogether.
Mm-hmm. And that means that she would have been leaving at her normal time and not the 3:15.
Right.
So I don't know.
I think she knew her assailant.
I think so too, which is awful.
I mean, because otherwise it's just a pure chance and there's too many what ifs.
Yeah. Unless it was
to make
someone
that story fit.
But yeah, because if it was someone completely random at, say, a gas stop, they wouldn't know where to leave her car.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. All of these unanswered questions keep Najah's case alive in the minds of investigators. Every so often, they re-examine the evidence with fresh eyes, hoping something will click. The case remains officially open and active. The Avon Police Department, the Indiana State Police, and the FBI have all been involved in different stages, and they continue to collaborate as new tips come in. Police have stated that somebody knows something, reiterating their belief that a member of the public could hold the missing piece of the puzzle. And I mean, it's hard not to think at least two people know. Over the years, law enforcement has made periodic public appeals to keep Najah's case in the spotlight. They have also pursued some creative investigative strategies. There have been reenactments and informational sessions held both in Avon and in Crown Point, with the thought that maybe the geography itself might jog someone's memory or conscience. For instance, around the anniversaries of Najah's disappearance, officers have returned to the areas where her car and her foot were found, talking to drivers or passerbys, distributing flyers, and asking if anyone recalls suspicious activity from around that time. Crime Stoppers of Central Indiana has offered a reward. The amount has varied over the years, but typically it's been several $1,000s for any tip that leads to a resolution. Investigators have even employed technologies like drones and sonar in subsequent searches, checking other bodies of water and hard to reach areas around the Crown Point Pond and just the travel route in general. These continued efforts show that authorities are not treating Najah's case as a closed cold case. They're actively looking for the break they need. One element that could potentially advance the case is forensic innovation. As technology improves, evidence that was once considered inconclusive might reveal new insights. For example, if any DNA was recovered from Najah's car or elsewhere, and this is tricky, that didn't match Najah or known friends or family, that profile is likely in a database waiting for a match. The more time that passes, the greater chance that whoever did this could slip up, perhaps getting arrested for something else, maybe having their DNA entered into national databases, which could then maybe flag a match to Najah's case. For Najah's family, life has never been the same since March of 2019. The pain of losing Najah, compounded by not knowing exactly what happened or who is responsible, is a heavy burden. They have been steadfast in their mission to keep her memory alive and seek justice for her. Since this happened, Paula did take on the caregiver role for Najah's children. Her two sons, who were young when Najah disappeared, are being raised by their grandmother. Paula has provided them...
Okay, that's interesting.
I was...
Not their dad?
And I'm not sure...
Because I was going to ask if the family had contact with them, so I'm glad to hear that they do, but I'm even more stunned that their father is not taking care of them.
And I don't know why, which is interesting. We already mentioned, but her 3 foster children who had been living with her in 2019 were returned to the foster care system.
That's sad.
Is so sad. These kids lost the woman who had given them a safe and caring home. Najah's family does try to keep in touch when it's possible. Every year on Najah's birthday, which is October 14th, and the anniversary of her disappearance, the family holds gatherings to celebrate her life and try to keep her case alive in the public eye. In 2021, the television series Still a Mystery on Investigation Discovery devoted an episode to Najah's disappearance titled Somebody Knows Something. Paula and Najah's aunt and her sister all appeared in that episode, recounting everything that happened and appealing for justice. They revealed insights that hadn't come out before this episode, like the detail about Najah ending her engagement, and they shared their unfiltered feelings. Notably, the show tried to get an interview with Najah's ex-fiance, and he declined to participate.
Do they suspect him? Does the family? Okay.
The family was disappointed that he wouldn't participate, but they remained focused on what they can do. Social media has been a powerful tool in Najah's case. The hashtag Justice for Najah Ferrell started trending in local circles and among some true crime advocates online. They have a Facebook group that we'll link to, and they continue to share Najah's story. They hope to keep Najah's case visible and paint a picture of who she was beyond just a victim. As of today, Najah Ferrell's murder remains unsolved. It has been nearly 7 years since that morning in March 2019, and the question of who took Najah's life is still unanswered, which is crazy with all the stuff they do have. You've got security footage, you've got her car, you've got her belongings. I mean, even finding her foot, and it still hasn't.
They need that second person
else
to get a conscience.
Yes. Investigators say they are actively working the case, and they truly believe that it can be solved with the right information. They have not publicly announced any suspects. They probably have persons of interest who simply haven't been named to the media in order not to jeopardize the investigation. The Avon deputy police chief was quoted saying, "We don't have enough to make an arrest at this time, but we're not giving up." And he's continued, to emphasize that. They also remind the community that alliances and relationships can change over the years. Someone who was scared to talk in 2019 might feel ready to talk in 2026 and could share what they know. Detectives still re-interview key people even after all this time. Investigators continue to encourage anyone with information, no matter how small or circumstantial it might seem, to come forward. Sometimes the tip that solves a case can seem insignificant on its own. It might be something like a remark someone made at a party, a change in someone's behavior after March of 2019, a hunch about a coworker who might have been in the area, anything. Police specifically believe that time can work in their favor. They are hoping that relationships change or guilt weighs on people. Najah's voice was silenced by an unknown killer, but we can all help make sure her story is still heard. If Najah's story moved you, please don't let it end here. Share her name and her story with others. The more people who know about the case, the better the chance that crucial information reaches the authorities. Remember, the perpetrator of this crime has lived free for all these years, which is a frightening thought and one that should compel us to act. Most importantly, if you or anyone you know has any information that could even remotely relate to Najah's disappearance and death, now's the time to speak up. Sometimes a small detail is the missing piece that makes the whole puzzle come together. You can reach the Crime Stoppers of Central Indiana tip line at 317-262-TIPS, which is 8477. Tips to Crime Stoppers can be made anonymously. You don't have to give your name, and you could still be eligible for a reward if your information leads to an arrest. If you don't want to call Crime Stoppers, you can go online to report your tip, and they even have a mobile app, which is P3 Tips. And we will link all of those in the show notes, and also the link to Avon Police Department and the Indiana State Police directly. Let's bring Najah's voice back through justice.
We're grateful you spent time with us today on Vanished Voices. These stories matter, and your support helps ensure they're not forgotten. To see our full list of episode sources and extended materials, visit the blog linked on our site, vanishedvoicespodcast.com. Follow us across socials, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Vanished Voices Pod. Your messages and feedback help shape the conversations we continue to have. If you'd like to support the show, please take a moment to review, subscribe, and share. We're streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, refuse to let these voices vanish.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.